All right. So in this video, what we're going to do is more or less give kind of complete the rig, get everything kind of together, add a couple of extra controllers, and just troubleshoot that there might be any sort of issues and just get everything kind of cleaned up. That's basically the goal. All right. So what I want to do is make a what we call like a initial positioner controller, and I also want to make a hips override controller. So you could go much fancier with this, but for the hips override, I'm just going to go ahead and create what is it, NURBS, and I'll just make a circle. And I'm just going to go over to the attribute editor and do object display, drawing overrides, enable overrides, and just give it a color. I'm just going to give it yellow so it doesn't stick out compared to the other one. And I'm just going to go ahead and hold V and point snap it to his hip joint. I'm going to turn off the channel box. Come on. And I'm just going to turn off the geo here. So that I can get this where I need. So I'm going to hold V, point snap it there, and I'm just going to scale it, I guess like that. Let me see. I'm going to scale it like, and then I'm going to move it down. I'm going to hold D and V for point snap and snap it up there, okay? That way, D to move pivot, V to point snap, and we'll just turn this back on. For now. That way I can get to it, but it's not over top of the other one. You know what I mean? It's annoying. So we're going to rename this hips override controller underscore CRV. Okay? And with it selected, we're just going to go ahead and do modify freeze transformations so that it'll clear it out, and then edit, delete by type, not all by type, history. Good. And I just want this to be right at world space. So I'm actually going to leave it like this and then shift select that. And we're going to do a constraint. Where are you at? No, make sure you're on rigging. We're going to do constraint, orient, hit the option box, and just turn on maintain offset, add. That way, when I go to rotate it, it will rotate it. But you can see I can move these hips without affecting the torso above, right? So I can grab the top. And I can grab the bottom. Okay, so that works pretty good. Let's see, is that good? We'll call that acceptable. I'm going to go ahead and just click and drag over this and control click and drag over these. I'm just going to right click and do lock and hide selected so I can only rotate, and that way I don't get tempted to try and move it or any of that other business, right? Yay. Okay, so that was one control I needed. The other one I'm going to need is the initial positioner. So basically the idea with that one is that it will move the whole character. Because right now, if I want to move the whole character, I've got to basically grab all of these things and then slide it around, which this stuff's all not parented, but I have to grab a bunch of things. I want to make one controller that everything gets parented to, and then I can move that, and that will move everything. So to do that, you can make it however you want. I'm just going to make it this way so you can see another way of making it. So I'm going to go to Curve Tools, CV Curve Tool, and I'm going to go to a top view here. And I'm just going to draw it over here so it's a little bit easier. I'm going to hold X for grid snap, click. I'm going to go 2 like this, then 1, then 2 across, 1, 2, 2, 1. X, 2 diagonal, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2 diagonal, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2 diagonal, back to 1, and enter. And now you can see, and so you could use the grid to make all sorts of cool like shapes and things like that. I'm just going to make this guy so that it's, I don't know, there. Let's do modify center pivot so it's in the center. I'm going to hold X for grid snap, and I'm going to snap it right to the origin. And then we will, I'm going to rotate this. I'm going to hold J for increment and make it so it's like this. I think it looks a little bit better when it's that. And I'm going to scale it up a little bit, like so. And we'll call that good. I'm just going to do modify freeze transformations. I'm going to name this one initial positioner controller underscore CRV. Okay. And I'm going to go to the attribute editor, And we're just going to go ahead and enable overrides, and I'm going to give this like just a different color altogether. So we'll give it, I don't know, this color. That's a pretty color. And the other thing I'm going to do, which you don't have to do this, but just for fun's sake, I'm just going to go to Create, Curve Tools. I'm not there. Okay, let's go Type, and Type Mesh. Not that one. Sorry. Type. Where generator geometry. I don't want it to create geometry. I was hoping to create create curves and type. There we go. And I am just oh, that's stupid. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the type, and I'm just going to type what I want first. So I'm just going to say, like, human rig, right? So whatever you want your rig to be called. And then go ahead and click on Create Curves from Type. Okay? And then I'm just going to go ahead and select the geometry, delete that. And one of these I didn't want, that one. And now I have this Type Mesh Curves, right? So you can see I have this group. I'm just going to go ahead and scale that down. Okay. And I'm just going to move it over here, and I'm going to rotate it. I'm going to hold J for increment so that it's flat. And I'm just going to move it over here. All right, so it just looks, let's scale it a little bit more. I'm going to make it fit inside the controller itself. Like this, right? And then you can put, like, you know, by whoever if you want. So you have that. You can change the color of this and all that too. I'm going to click one, hit up arrow. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this group, and I'm just going to go ahead and then, so I have the group selected, shift select this and hit P. So when I move this, it moves it. But this is still selectable. So what I'm going to do is hit the up arrow again. So I have this. So I have this. It's underneath here now. This thing right here. I'm just going to go ahead and change some stuff about it. So we're going to go to Display, Drawing Overrides, Enable Overrides. Instead of changing a color, which would be cool, I wonder if we could do that anyway. Well, anyway, you see it says Display Type Normal. Click on this and choose, let's do Template. Now it'll be gray, and we can't select it at all, and it will just move with this. Okay? So the idea is just, you don't have to do that. It's just, you know, add a little pizzazz, if you will, right? Okay, so now we've got this initial positioner controller, and basically everything is going to have to get parented to that. So we have now all the controllers. Now we just need to go through and make sure that everything's like hunky-dory and connected. I know a lot of you guys like the outliner. I am not necessarily an outliner guy. So what I'm going to do is go Windows, General Editor, Hypergraph Hierarchy. It just gives you, it's just a bigger window to kind of work with. So what I'm going to do is basically make this kind of big, and over here, and okay. Okay, so that's fine. Okay, so let's look to see what we have here. I got this transform thing. That's just an empty node. I'm going to get rid of that. I got this hips override controller. So I think what I'm going to do is actually just go ahead and parent that to this controller, so that way when this rotates, it also rotates the bottom. It just makes it easier. So I'm going to grab this and then shift select this controller. So hips override, then the root controller, hit P. All right, so now it's part of that. Okay, now we have this eye controller. Now you could do this a couple of ways. We could do, technically the right way to do it is actually take it and parent it to this, because that way, even if his body rotates like this, right, it will still see, it'll still stare at the eyes. Personally though, because I don't like doing it like that, I'm just going to take this controller and I'm just going to parent it to, I'm just going to parent it to the head and hit P. So now when I rotate the head, it will also rotate the eye controller. I just think it's easier to work with than that. And the neck, okay, that's already parented. That's good. Okay, so this next I gotta get parented to this. So I'm just gonna grab the neck controller. I'm gonna hit the up arrow so that I get the null, right? So you can see I have these different strands. These all need to be connected together in some way. So I'm gonna select this null neck, and then I'm gonna select this controller. So I'm gonna hold shift and click on this, and hit P. So now when I rotate this, it will rotate that upper part as well. Okay. All right. Good. And we need to do the same thing basically with the arms here. So both the arm clavicles also need to be parented to this. So I'm going to select those, hold shift, click on this, and hit P. And now again, when I rotate this, right, it'll rotate the rig with it, which is desirable. Great. Okay. And we grab this, right, moves the entire top torso. Good. All right. Now I don't want the feet to actually move with this. I want to be able to move this and have the feet stick. So what we're going to do is we are going to take this controller here. So this is my root controller, and I'm just going to parent that to this. So I select that. There's no null group above it, so it's fine because there's nothing. It's at world. Shift select this and then hit P. So now when I move this, it will move that one. And then we're going to do the same thing with the feet. Select this foot. Select this foot. Now, make sure you grab the controller and not the joint. Unless you're an idiot like me. Select those two. Shift select this and hit P. And now when I move this, it moves the entire dude. Okay? So that's pretty good. One quick way of kind of testing a rig is, I'm going to move this out of the way. Let's go to the channel box. Is this. Take the first from translate to rotate and type in 100. And then hit F to frame and see if it looks weird. If there's anything like tilted or shifted, you want to go over 90 degrees because that way you know. And also you want to go pretty far away from origin so that you can tell if there's anything weird going on. Like if something stops influencing after a certain distance, this should kind of cover it. And you need to go over 90 degrees because most of the things, like once you hit 90 degrees is typically when they break. But if you look, you can see nothing is funky, so that's good. I'm just going to Control Z to undo, F to frame back where we were. Good. All right, so that rig is looking pretty okay. Now another thing I didn't like was when I was rotating this, you notice that the rig starts to come off. And the reason why, see how the controller here is rotating, but this curve, and the curve's rotating, and it's moving that cluster, which is moving those 2 points on that curve, but it's only going to be able to go so far because it's just stretching a curve. So just to kind of make it 100%, what I want you to do is select this controller, then shift select this joint, okay? Go constraint, and then just make sure maintain offset is still on, and hit add. And then what that'll do now is that basically it will move the curve like I want it to, but it'll also make this joint 100% to the rotation of that joint, which will make it so that the rig doesn't fall off or anything. Okay. All right, good. So that's a little bit better too. All right, so we've got it. It's not broken. It's doing its whole thing. The last thing I need to do on like the body rig part of this is this. We have this initial positioner, but you see I have still other things here, right? There's other things. Other things. Where's my geometry? Wires group. Oh, there. Okay. Is this an empty group? I don't think this is anything, right? Okay. I'm just going to get rid of this. See how it's just this arrow thing? Sometimes it'll show that if it doesn't know what it is. I think it's just an empty transform node. Sometimes what you can do too is rebuild. If for some reason the icon doesn't change and it's like a weird looking icon, that will help. I think there's a refresh or something too. View. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, but I have these extra nodes and stuff. So what we need to do is I want to take everything. It should all be underneath one hierarchy list. Okay. So we're going to break this down into basically 2 groups. So with nothing selected, hit Control G. Okay. And then Control G. Oops. Nothing selected again. Control G. Okay. So there's going to be a transform and a non-transform group. So I'm going to take this and you can rename it. Right click, rename. And we'll call this the transform _ GRP. And click on this one, rename. And non-transform _ GRP. And basically these things are going to end there. So you're just going to take the initial positioner because this stuff all does transform. We move it, we rotate it, we do all that. I'm just going to middle mouse button, click and drag it to the transform group and let go. Okay. And then pretty much everything else is going to go in the non-transform group. So these two things are actually from doing my spline, my spine, seaside spine, splines. Okay, but those aren't part of the transform. So I'm just gonna click in. What's this? That looks like an empty node, right? Yeah, let's delete that guy. Okay. If you don't feel comfortable deleting stuff, you might not want to, just because you don't know what it is. So I'm gonna click and drag all of these, not like this, because otherwise I'm tearing all these off. You want to grab just the top items, and just middle mouse button, click and drag them to there. Okay, and then I'm just gonna hit A to make sure I have everything. Good. So if you look, it's not really that complicated of a rig, right? If you've ever seen like big rigs, they're like many more times the size of this one. So now these two are just going to become my character. So I'm going to select both of those, just the top ones, and hit Control G. And then we're going to rename this one. We'll call it whatever your character's name _ GRP. And now everything in that character is underneath this one group, and your character is officially rigged. Okay. Now, we have all the stuff in there. You might want to go through and just clean some other stuff up here. So like I might grab this one, and like I don't want scale, right? None of these should have scale. So I'm going to select all these things. Not him. You can select all of the... We'll just do it this way. So you could select it and then just lock and hide. Where are you? Lock and hide selected, right? And then that one I already did it too. This one again, lock and hide. Right? Lock and hide selected. And then these have all these stuff, but these aren't even meant to transform. So I'm going to hold Shift and I'm going to click, 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 click. These also don't click, click. And this also doesn't have it. There you go. Oh, and these clavicle controllers. Click. Okay. So I'm going to select all those, and I'm just going to go ahead and remove the scales. Right click, lock and hide selected. And also remove the transforms, or the translates. And lock and hide selected. Okay. That way, they just have the rotation, because that's all they're meant to do, and nobody gets confused. Nobody gets hurt. Right? These obviously all should not have the scales, but they should have lock and hide selected. They're more about the transforms, but I like to leave the rotation just because it might be easier if like you go to move this to the side. Move this to the side and you want to rotate it too so that it's facing him better. You could do that. So I'm going to leave the rotate, but apparently I didn't freeze the transforms on this, so bad on me. All right. Good. So I think the rig is all pretty it's all pretty clean at this point. I'm trying to think of what else I would want to do. Yeah, so save that. Okay, and then the next thing to do is basically to paint the weights. That would be the next step. But we'll do that in another video. But as far as our thing is concerned, our character is now underneath one giant hierarchy, so that is great. And then we would do weight painting and blend shapes.